Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. So we have finished this Annamaya Kosha, which is in Upadhi. And the next verse continues and says, why is it that I'm actually free of this body that we have spoken about, this food that we call your body? So verse 47 says, Purvam janehe adhimrtehe apina ayam asti jata kshana kshana gunaha aniyata svabhavaha na ekaha jadaha cha ghatavat paridrshya manaha swatma katam bhavati bhava vikara veta. And it says, this physical body does not exist before birth and after death. It gains new attributes with the birth of every moment and is of uncertain nature. It is not a single unit, but an assemblage, and inert. It is an object of perception like a pot. How can it be the self who is the knower of the modifications? Okay. So essentially the verse is saying the body is limited. And Vedanta says your true self is not limited. So obviously you cannot be the body. But to see how this is so, we need to go into, according to the verse, 5 features why you cannot be the body. So this is going to use logic. And the first is, it says, the body is an object of awareness. That means it's an object of awareness like a pen. A pen is an object of awareness. My hand is an object of awareness. It's an object known to me. And anything known to me is not me. The knower can never be the known. This is just logic. And if you take, for instance, one part of your body, simple, like one finger, if you know that this finger is not me, then what's going to be now the difference if I put 2 fingers? It's also going to not be me. 3 fingers, not me. 4 fingers, not me. Hand, not me. Arm, not me. Another arm, not me. 2 legs, not me. So now you can apply this logic to the entire body. If one body part is not me, then since one body part is made of the same constituents as every other body part, then it's not me. It's just atoms. If this bunch of atoms that we call a finger is not me, then what difference is it going to make when I talk about the brain, which is a bunch of atoms, or the heart made of the exact same things as a finger? We lose a finger, we're afraid. And yet the finger, you still remain exactly who you are. Now your heart, a thing that we're all afraid of stopping, and suddenly me going out of existence. And that heart that is beating is made of the same inert atoms that you can see under a microscope. Same material as this finger. When I cut this finger, not me. Heart, not me. Brain, not me. Same logic. You know, I saw a video, probably you have too, where someone had tumor on the brain and they had half of their brain taken out. And they got interviewed and said, what's it like? And they said, well, some things I can process, some things I can't, but I still know, are you the same person? Absolutely, I'm still the same person. I've just lost capacities to process some things in the world. So all that's happened is a certain functionality has been taken out, but the person still enjoys the same personhood as before. And then there's another woman who I saw on TV. She was carrying a portable battery with a pump. And inside that pump was her heart. Not actual, but it was an artificial heart. And so she was outside the hospital and they were interviewing her and said, "What's it like to be without a heart? You don't have a heart right now." There's a hole here. And she's carrying like a big 2.5 kilogram more, with a backup battery, obviously. And she's like, "I feel normal." It's very interesting, though, to know that my whole life is in this bag. It's just a funny thing to think about. And she's a normal person. Like, "How are you? How are you feeling?" Just like before. No, so it's just an instrument. Instrument that's a heart here, arm here, and you put these assembly parts together, and then you have a fully functioning human being. So, you see, we're not really emotionally attached to our bones, are we? You got emotional attachment to your bones. You do? That's an exception. Do you cry over your bones, or right? Or your blood cells? You don't have any emotional attachment there. But when you put it all together, you have emotional attachment to the body. So my question now is, which part do you have emotional attachment to? To the bones? Well, you just said no.
To the heart.
To the heart? Okay, then what if you're this woman carrying a battery? Yeah, now a little bit, right? Tricky. It's so strange, isn't it? Like, I've got emotional attachment to my heart, and now next day I'm in a battery pack. And you're like, man, just pumping up and down. And I'm like, I'm still here. And then the person without half of a brain, still the same person. So now, what you have to do to break apart this idea that I am as good as the body, because it's a very deep notion, is one needs to periodically remind themselves, this is just an assemblage of parts. It's parts put together. It's bones, it's bone marrow, it's excrements, it's flesh. It's not pretty to do, I get it, because we like to sort of cherish our bodies, but this is knowledge, and knowledge isn't always comfortable, and it requires some kind of assessment, like a reality check. That's all we're doing, a reality check. Now, when you start to remind yourself again and again, something interesting happens. You develop a healthy relationship to your body. Not kind of a detached, "Oh, I don't care about it anymore." That's not what we're talking about. Just a healthy, normal relationship where I'm not just so kind of attached to other bodies or my body. You just use it properly, how you're meant to use it. But it does require a little bit of that repetition to get an objective sense towards your body. Okay? So, body is an object. Every part is an object of my awareness. Whatever is an object of awareness, like heart, whatever you can see, whatever you can feel, like heart beating, sometimes the brain is, migraine, headache. Whatever is perceived cannot be you. So anything you ever perceive about your body is not you. The second feature is the body is saguna. In other words, it's constantly changing in attributes. So in other words, a body is made of different attributes, and every moment a condition of the body is different. I had back pain because the bed was hard. I woke up did anyone else have back pain? Huh? Oh my goodness. Marion gave me a soft bed.
Yoga tomorrow morning.
Huh?
6 o'clock yoga.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It works?
We do a lot of asanas for back pain.
Okay, well, rather just give me a soft bed and skip the formalities.
But you can ask them to reception. They give you an extra mattress.
Yeah, Marion took care of me.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so I'm really glad. So, see, you wake up and you go, oh, pain, right? So whatever you perceive is not you. That's a sensation belonging to the body. Now, the body is constantly going through changes. And there's pain, there's hunger, there is migraine headache. All of these things are just attributes belonging to the physical body. And I get it, you have to bear it. There's no way out of it. Even as a wise person, you think a wise person doesn't have this? No, of course they do, because the body has to live out to the last breath, and you have to do the best you can to take care of it. So now when the body condition, when you mistake that body condition for I, then that body condition becomes a kosha for you. And what's the problem with that? You say, so what? Well, it is a big so what, because then it becomes 2 times more painful. Have you ever had that time where maybe you were small and you were bleeding, you didn't know you were bleeding, and someone pointed out you were bleeding, and suddenly you freaked out, right? So you had this psychological pain onto that, but before you were totally okay. So like this, whenever I take this attribute, and I'm going to be a little bit sensitive with the language, diseases will come. Cancer might come. This is the reality. You see, one day this will happen as the body gets older and older, which is part of life. But when I'm able to have some framework and recognize this is the nature of life, this is an attribute of the body, then sure, the body is still going to go through its pain, but it makes it a lot easier for you to bear. And this is how you have this direct transformation. And it's true, I don't know if you experienced, but the more you have this objective relationship with the body, the more you're like, it's a headache, but I still got to do what I got to do. Yeah? So this is that maturity. And now you may say, well, yeah, the body changes because it's constantly changing in attributes. And what about genes? They don't change. Because we could say, oh, wait a minute, maybe the consciousness is inside your genes. This is what a scientist will argue. Now, how do you think an Advaitin Vedanta would counter this argument? So suppose I say to you, the body is changing constantly, therefore it can't be you. You are the unchanging presence, the witnessing presence. Now, this scientist says, actually, you see, your genes don't change. And consciousness is inside your genes. You should be able to respond like that.
It's only for this life. That's only for this life.
Okay.
So the genes are not who you are, because every life you have is different genes.
Okay. There's a better argument than that. That's a good try.
Genes are dependent on the karma.
Dependent on something smaller. Okay, what are genes made of? Inert atoms. Can you find consciousness in any one atom? No. So they're made of the same atoms that makes up this wall. That's what a gene is, basically. Now, this wall doesn't have consciousness, so, how can you now add inert atom plus inert atom plus inert atom and suddenly I have consciousness? There's no logical sense to this. So yes, genes might be the same, but genes are inert because they're made of periodic table of elements. So therefore, that argument fails. Okay, so the first is the body is an object of awareness. Anything that is an object of awareness, when I say object, it's known to you. Pain is known to you. Growth is known to you. Decay is known to you. The second is body is saguna. That means it's with attributes. Anything that has an attribute is not you. Because attribute is always seen, felt, heard. Yeah? Okay. The third one is the body is anekaha. The body is not a single entity. You don't find one single holistic entity. This is what I said earlier. The body that you're carrying is made of parts. If it's made of parts, that means every part is reborn constantly. For example, if I hurt my arm, that part is reborn. I don't feel reborn when this arm is reborn. Additionally, because your body is made of parts, it means that it cannot be consciousness, because if it were, then if you take one part out, right, cut the arm, then you would sort of feel, right, 25% less conscious. That doesn't happen. Additionally, the body goes through many changes every minute. In fact, you've had many bodies already. Different people, as we discussed earlier. That means there were many births and deaths of bodies that you've had, and yet you do not experience a birth and death throughout that. Thus, you must be different than the body. Because if your consciousness was as good as the baby, then when the baby or the little teenager that's gone, you would have been gone. But there you are here now going, you know, I remember once upon a time, my body was of a teenager. So that means that there is a constant, unbroken aluptadrik, a presence which has not been broken by the transition of the baby, teenager, adult. The baby, teenager, adult has been broken by the growth, but there's something that has not been broken. That is the witnessing presence of those changes. Does this make sense? Okay? You couldn't tell that you've had a baby body if you were good as that baby consciousness. You couldn't tell you were the teenager body if you were as good as teenager consciousness. So consciousness has to be free of the baby, the teenager, and the adult. On number 4, the body is jadaha, inert. So it is inert, made of what? Potassium, calcium, carbon. It's as inert as this wall. It's made of the same atoms as the periodic table of elements. It's inert. It has no consciousness of its own. Therefore, which part in your body, since the entire body is made of inert elements, which part of your body will you find consciousness in? You know, it's really funny, but I still read articles nowadays, and they say, you know, we in the science industry, with respect to them, you know, I love science, but there's one area, neuroscience, for instance, we will find consciousness in the brain. We're yet to discover it. And they just keep on trying and trying and trying. I'm like, it's just so illogical in Advaita. But to them, it's a genuine concern, a genuine pursuit. What do we say in Vedanta? Look at the body. It's atom. Every atom is inert. Add inert plus inert plus inert plus, just pure mathematics. You will never come to a conscious entity if you add inert atoms together. They're just protons and neutrons. And protons and neutrons are just quarks. And that reduces into just, utter concepts. So how can you just now find consciousness in that if it makes up the rock? But to them, they're still kind of trying, you know. They want to find it in some part of the brain. They want to map your consciousness. They want to map your consciousness on a computer and then transfer your consciousness to some other body. This is the cost of not having this knowledge. You have genuine millions of dollars invested into research that is utterly useless. Now, of course, if I say the word useless, that's a very dangerous word to say it like that, but you get the idea.
But consciousness is ever pervasive, so it's also in the body.
Yes. Yes. Now that's a topic for another section of this course. So what I will, remember how I said there's 2 steps? I will first tell you what is consciousness, what is not self, and then I will eventually say what everything is consciousness. But I'm going to hide that from you for now. But I just gave it away, didn't I? Yeah. This is how the methodology works. Yeah.
But when it's pervaded by consciousness, you still cannot find it.
Yeah, you cannot find it. So you have to use a certain methodology to recognize the final reality in all things. Yeah. So the body, this is number 4, the body is inert. So number 1, body is an object of awareness. 2, body is saguna, anything that's an attribute cannot be the self. 3, the body is not a single entity, it's anekaha, that means it's not one entity. Therefore, which part will you find consciousness in? And 4, it is inert. Now, furthermore, one logic to show that you will not find consciousness in a physical body and some teachers will use this, I'll mention it now, is that when the body dies, if consciousness was intrinsic to the body, intrinsic means it never separates from the body, it's at one, then consciousness could never leave a dead body. So the fact that consciousness leaves, there's no consciousness when the body is dead, the fact that it leaves the body, the fact that there's no consciousness after the body is dead, shows you that it was never intrinsic to the body. So this is one other argument that some teachers will use. And then number 5, the body is an object of perception. Again, this is what I say. Anything perceived, are you perceiving your body now? Yes? Therefore, it is not the self. Anything perceived, this is a general rule. Anything known can never be the knower. Anything that's an object, like an object of knowledge, can never be me. Let's summarize this section of why you cannot be the body. There are 2 big reasons why. The first is the body is changing. And to perceive a change, to know about the change, there has to be a unchanging presence. That's logic. To recognize the movement of the earth, moving, you have to have a stationary star, the sun. To recognize that the train is moving, you have to have a stationary outside background. So to recognize any form of change, there has to be something about you that is still. And in reference to that stillness, change, movement is recognized. It was a movie maker. He was making these movies early on in 1920s. The problem was the cameras were not that good back then. So he was shooting airplanes in the air. Not shooting bang bang, but recording airplanes. And what happened, there was no clouds. And he complained, you know what, the airplanes are flying so fast, I can't tell whether they're moving, how fast they're moving, because I need a stationary cloud. So he spent millions of dollars holding these planes, waiting on the airport, waiting for a cloudy day. Because it's just a movie, it's like you're just looking at a bunch of little things, you don't know how fast they're moving at all. So you always need that stationary cloud to recognize a moving body, moving thought, moving sensation. So this is just basic logic. Now you may not be able to objectify that which is unmoving, but the very fact that the moving can be perceived shows you there must be a unmoving witness. Just like the very fact that sight can take place shows me that an eye, the physical eye, must exist. But can the physical eye see itself? No. Does the physical eye need to see itself? No. Just the fact that sight is possible implies, shows you the presence of a physical eye. Just the fact that there is movement shows you there must be something that is unmoving. So number 1, the body is changing. Anything changing can never be the changeless. And 2, the body is objectified. That means it's a knowledge, object of knowledge. Anything that's objectified can never be the subject. Anything that's an object can never be the subject. But someone said to me in a class, how do you prove that consciousness was there before my body was born? Because he believed that consciousness only arose when his body was born.
It's obvious. If it would be dependent on the birth of a body, then it would be an object.
Okay, it would be an object, sure. He could now counter-argue that, okay, but it doesn't prove that consciousness was there before.
Because it's always there.
Okay.
So it must have been there.
Okay, good. So consciousness was always there, number 1, because it's all pervasive. Consciousness is unchanging. Therefore, it cannot suddenly change from an unmanifest into a manifest. You see that argument?
But that's an argument, that's not our direct experience.
Yeah, that's not your because you don't because you don't remember the experience of having been before. Because when we get born, we forget. But there is one more argument. You can say, how do you prove that consciousness was there all along before this body was born? So argument number one is consciousness is changeless. How do I prove that consciousness is changeless? I have to prove that right now while I'm awake, while I have a body. And how do we do that? We've been doing that right now. The body is changing. In the presence of a changing body, there is a changeless presence. So if the consciousness is changeless, no matter what, and I can cut this body apart, and consciousness stays, then by definition, when I cut the last part of the body, which is made of atoms, consciousness still remains. That's the first argument. The second argument is death. When the body dies, there's no more consciousness in the body. What does that show you? It shows you that consciousness was never intrinsic to the body to begin with.
And you have also the near-death experiences. People show that they still are alive even if the body is physically dead. So you could argue that these people have this experience, thousands of these accounts.
Okay.
And another example would be the deep sleep state. In deep sleep, the body is not alive as in the waking state, but consciousness is obviously there because we arise in the waking state again.
I think the fact that no one can remember when they were an infant or the moment they were born, no one can remember that moment.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, inversely, I prove I must have existed before that moment. It's kind of like a counter argument to prove that I existed before I was born.
Yeah, so you need to now introduce the subtle body, because the way out of that is, again, go back all the way to the beginning. How did you gain some personality traits? Where did they come from? Because you cannot find one single thing in this universe that doesn't have a preceding cause. Even if I don't see the cause, it doesn't mean it's not there. Find me one thing in this universe that doesn't have a cause that comes before it.
Brahman. Brahman.
Yeah, Brahman is the only reality. Yeah, good. But suppose they don't know about Brahman, okay? And they say, no, the body is only born, and that's when consciousness starts. Right? That's where we're still at, that argument. So now you have to show, okay? But show me one thing, including your consciousness. Show me one thing that it doesn't have a preceding cause to it. Nothing suddenly appears from nowhere. It had some trace before. This is another way you can use the argument.
What about the deep sleep? There is no body there. There is a consciousness.
In deep sleep, there is consciousness in deep sleep because you just talked about deep sleep.
There is no body.
Yeah, but see, it doesn't matter, because the fact that the person brought up deep sleep implies there must have been something or someone in deep sleep to even bring it up. If there was no I, consciousness in deep sleep, then when somebody says to me deep sleep, I would say, huh? I don't go to that place. I only dream. But like we said, when I go to sleep, I'm not talking about a dream. So even though I cannot remember deep sleep, there must be deep sleep because I do not go to sleep in order to dream. I go to sleep to that place where there is no I, where there is no relative I.
There is Turiya, right?
What about Turiya?
When you are asleep
Yeah,
and you wake up and you say you had a good sleep,
yeah.
what's watching you having a good sleep?
That's called abhava vritti. So whenever you go to sleep, it's not like everything disappears. There's one memory in deep sleep called abhava vritti, and that's a type of memory that remains there. And that memory records nothing during deep sleep. Now, when you wake up, you access that memory of nothing, and you go, so that memory is blank. And in reference to that blank, I can tell there was no dream and there was nothing. That's why you say, what was sleep?
Good.
Yeah, good, but you can't really kind of define it. But you know you slept. What lets you know that you slept? Abhavavriti, it's a memory. So the memory was still working. Usually they'll say that the subtle body is completely resolved during deep sleep. Not completely. Still have a memory there. Because consciousness, if consciousness was just in deep sleep, how can consciousness remember? It doesn't have memory because it's attributeless. Therefore, there has to be something to have recorded the presence of no mind. And that is called abhavavriti, a memory.
But this is the part of deep sleep, not turiya.
This is a type of?
This is the deep sleep state of mind, not turiya.
This is called, no, turiya just means consciousness.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Yeah.
It's deep sleep, right? When you still this little bit of memory.
Yeah. So deep sleep has memory. Yeah.
But it's a consciousness who recognizes that special memory, right?
No, it's the waker. It's the waker, the I thought that recognizes that. The I thought that's accessing, for example, if I ask you right now, remember your house, the color of your house right now. Right, so you're doing that. We all do this, huh? Remember your front door. Okay? Good. So now, what remember that? That's called memory. So now, that same memory is accessible to you of deep sleep. So it's just memory. Just like memory in the waking state, there's a memory of nothing. And then you access nothing, go, I slept. But what is consciousness's relationship to that? In the presence of consciousness, the memory is taking place. In the presence of consciousness, there is access of memory. So that is an object of knowledge to me awareness.
And when you die, is that a question of the subtle body that leaves the body? Is that the difference with deep sleep?
So when the physical body dies, then what happens, it's like a dream state. Exactly like a dream state. The subtle body doesn't leave. Because the subtle body is something that has been following you since beginningless time. Subtle body only leaves when you attain moksha in this life and then drop this physical body. No more subtle body carrying around. Now I am everything. But until that moment, when this body dies, I, the traveler, still continue.
That I understand. But what is the dying thing then? I mean, what is the difference? Because the body is inert, and still there's a difference between the waking state and to be dead and deep sleep state. What is the difference when you have a dead body? What is left? What is gone?
When you have a dead body, what's left is still the person who I think I am, the subtle body. For example, now you don't need really the physical body. When you go to sleep, when you dream, that dreamer, that's the one that survives physical death. You know that dreamer who's just all over the place, just memories, all fluid, and there's some impressions of your life? That one survives.
That can pick up a new body?
And that finds itself in a new body. Yeah.
But it forgets its sense of identity. What causes that? Like personal preferences, for example. Why does that go?
It goes because, the way the system is made, because you need to sort of start a new life, get a fresh chance. So it's kind of like, a way for you to start again without the burdens of all of the hurts and memories and so on. So you could say it's inbuilt. Yeah, it's the way it is. Otherwise, imagine every single, body you wake up and you have the exact clarity of your house door in your last life. You'll be so confused. But what does continue...
I get that would have to be a practical implication.
Yeah.
What I don't get is what causes that.
What causes that?
Yeah, what creates the reason for that? Like, I know that that's the practical implication, and that's, I accept that,
Yeah.
but what, Brahman decides that? I'm going to make you forget that. I'm gonna
No, that's Ishvara. That's Ishvara's system. That's Ishvara's design.
So it's just a
It's just a system. It's just a phase. It's how it is. That's Ishvara's design.
It's a faith thing. There's no actual
No, it's
proof
okay.
written in the.
That's just the system, how it's designed. So to like, if I ask why is it like that, because that's how it's made.
Is it not to improve the world because you become better in your second life?
Well, I mean, you have to get a new chance because you get new parents, you get new opportunities. You have to start fresh, because just like when you wake up from deep sleep, what happens in that morning? You know, the morning time. How do you feel in the morning? Fresh, right? So clear. So now, as a child, you know how a child is. They're so fresh, so full of life. But at the time we get like 60 or 80, right? A lot of that life force has evaporated. Wouldn't it be cool to have that? Huh? Wouldn't it be cool to bring that life force back of a child? Oh, awesome.
But some people do have past life memories, so why do they have past life memories?
Yeah, that's possible too. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just thought
They will fall further back.
Swami Dayananda always made the joke that one mother-in-law is already enough. Just imagine you have.
One mother-in-law is already enough. Oh man. And you'd be like, you get born, I'm out of here. Planning your, where's the rope? Yeah. So that's the way it's made. And okay, so let's just logically analyze this. So do you think it's a good way that it's made like that? Because what other way would you make it?
No other way.
You see? Would you make it another way? Because you still do carry over impressions. That's the good part. For example, you get born and you're a natural thinker, you're a natural artist, you're a natural good communicator, but without all the burdens. Oh, remember that one time I was communicating and nobody gave me a standing ovation? So you forget all of that. Now you're completely fresh to be that innocent child and again develop those new, right, skills. So would you have designed it any better?
Well, you probably reach moksha a lot earlier because you remember your past lives.
It's almost like a computer. You want to remove the memories or have more capacity,
Yes.
but you still have the software.
Yeah. You free yourself. And the brain is very limited. It cannot process so much. It's like single task, so you cannot hold too much at once. So you have to free it.
To process one life is more than.
Yeah.
The memories of this life is already enough. You don't bring only memories for nice things. Imagine the traumas. You would be in psychiatric hospital, I think.
Yeah. You're born in a psychiatry hospital.
There are few open consciousness on this planet Earth. So there are few people, souls in the body on this planet Earth that they have open consciousness and they can remember past and they know the future.
In terms of remembering, good. Okay, so in terms of remembering the past, that's possible for a moment. I have no doubt about that. In terms of the future, even if Lord Incarnate appeared before us here, and I ask him what's going to happen 5 minutes from now, he would be clueless. He would not know. Why? Because as you will soon see, things are constantly unfolding depending on what we do right now. So if someone predicts the future, what they're really saying is they're going to predict, that means they're taking away free will, they're taking away, they're just saying the whole thing is pre-scripted and everything's just going to work out exactly how it's supposed to work out. But it doesn't work like that. The way it works is we as collective human beings are constantly putting new causes into the field, changing. There's 8 billion people changing the field, changing the future every single tomorrow. So that tomorrow, how is tomorrow going to look like? Depending on what we collectively do today. Therefore, I cannot tell the future. I can infer a general trajectory based on what we're doing collectively right now. That is possible.
Because where there is a system, there is also an ordinance, right?
Yeah, but still, you know how quickly things can change. Therefore,
Somewhere, maybe 60, 70, 80%, they can.
I mean, I wouldn't put a percent to it. I would just say there's a general trajectory how we're all going. For example, if we continue to put the same carbon emissions into without doing any governmental work putting it down, we can take statistical data right now and see that the ocean are rising about 1 meter, and then infer in 50 years they will rise 5 meters, and we will be generally accurate. But then again, someone may, in the government system, impose some, sanctions or something, and that will modify those causes.
So they have this kind of consciousnesses on this planet Earth right now, right?
I would not say, they're just normal people. I would not say they're open consciousness. The word consciousness is attributeless. There's only one consciousness. I would say their minds are attuned, but I would not put the word consciousness into it. Huh? I don't know. Some people are a little bit clairvoyant. Some people are very sensitive to realities. This is all, we all have this. We all have these skills here and there. This is the power. There are cities. People have cities, right? They develop those cities. But okay, I bless them.
But at the end of the day, free will is also part of the mutual, right? Free will contained in that system.
Yeah.
So it's kind of still nature, not real. Apparently real, right? Because free will is also very debatable, whether there is free will or no free will.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So see, at the transactional level, you have a choice. You have choice to do, not do, or do something different. That's a fact. But at the absolute level, it is just another form. It's like another ornament of the gold. But this is going to come in another part of the course. Verse 48. Next place where you put your eye into is in prana. Verse 48. Karmendriyaihi panchabhihi anchitaha ayam pranaha bhavet pranamayaha tu koshaha yena atmavan anamayaha anupurnaha pravartate asau sakala kriyasu. The next place where we put our eye into is prana. And this, again, just like the body industry has multi-million-dollar massage, right? Health industry, food, exercise industry. All of this is catering to one single kosha, the body. So you can see how consumerism works. The next one that we mistake is the prana. So what is prana? Prana in English is life force or energy. In this context, I'll put those two words the same, life force or energy. And now what does this energy do? It empowers all of your physical activities. So think of it as that which enables, like a robot. What enables a robot to work? Electricity. So prana is like electricity. You can't see it, but it is there that enables movement of the capacities for grasping, for procreating, for speaking. You can't see that, but it is empowering digestion, circulation, inhalation, exhalation. So it's like kind of like a software that you can't see. So your body is like a hardware and prana is like a software. It tells it how to breathe, how to digest, how to circulate. In a Bible, I thought it was a very nice statement. It says, the Lord fashions out of earth, in other words, 5 elements. The Lord fashions out of earth man, and then breathes life, prana, into him. It's exactly what Advaita is saying. Sometimes we say prana is this vital air, this life force. Why is it called vital air? Do you identify with the air that you with air here? No. But the moment that air enters the nostrils, it becomes aliveness, it becomes life force, it becomes sentiency. And what do you do now? I am alive. If you want to see what prana is, look at this. I'll show you what prana is. Take a deep breath and hold it. Now notice how that life force, how it's more uncomfortable, how it's falling down. Okay, you can breathe out. Uh-oh, I lost the students. Ticket back to Australia, zoom. Okay, now if you were holding that, you would know what prana is. Because that prana is that air that you don't identify with, but the moment it's breathed in, and you say, I'm full of sentiency, aliveness. And what is the most common, strongest thing that that I gets identified with? Aliveness. You see this word, aliveness? Aliveness is prana. It is not you. That's why we say, oh, when the body dies, I will no longer be alive. Where is your I? It's in your prana. You think when the prana leaves, when the prana goes, I go. You see how strong the powerful prana is? And you think, they even have those breathing exercises. You breathe deeply and you're so buzzing with oxygen. I used to do this when I was smaller. And you just breathe deeply, exercise, like a little bit of force. And your body is just feeling so oxygenated. And you're like, wow, I love feeling powerful, like pranish, energized, full of prana. And then it becomes an addiction. And when it becomes an addiction, and you turn life force into status of I, it becomes a kosha, as though a cover. Therefore, what is prana? Prana is anything that is like energy, fatigue, feeling alive, feeling kind of drawn out. This is all prana. It's wonderful to have that, but remember, it is not you. Aliveness, sentiency, is not you. Sentiency is a word, a function of prana and the mind, of course, together. It is not you. Therefore, if aliveness goes, I don't go. Sometimes in the hospitals, the nurses will say that, when the person is about to go, what happens is they need a lot of sleep. Why do they need a lot of sleep? And even after they rest, they will still wake up tired. The reason for this is because the cells in their bodies are no longer able to be in their harmonious state. And so they can't no longer accommodate that prana. So even though the prana is there, it can't enter every single cell. And since the cell makes up the body, the person is just constantly tired. And what happens? Even though the prana is there, the body is not able to host the prana until eventually it can no longer host the prana at all, and that's when the body dies.
Is this the other way around, that the prana is going lower when you get older?
Not necessarily, because prana is part of the subtle body. It's the physical body that cannot quite host the prana. So the prana is there all the time, but the body is just not regenerating itself enough to be able to take in the fullness of that prana. Just like a cell that's not able to take in the full nutrition or digestion. You eat a lot of food, but you don't take a lot of nutrients inside. So same thing there. Now, they say, prana is going down. Yes, it's going down. Yeah, chi prana, same words. It is going down, but in reference to, observing it, in reference to feeling it. But the actual prana, being part of the subtle body doesn't go away.
Oh yeah, I thought the Chinese are telling when the qi is low, then you die. But it's,
Yeah.
there's almost no more qi.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not, yeah, it is low, but only because the cells can't fully take in that qi. That's why, yeah. And you will see why prana is not part of the physical body using logic here. You see, prana also is, it's going to say it's the 5 organs of action, 5 capacities for action. Now, those capacities for action are like grasping, walking, and speaking. We'll take those 3. Grasping, walking, and speaking. Now, during dream, does that dream character grasp? Does that dream character walk? No, it does, right? You walk.
Not physically, like it just
Yeah, in other words, they're still grasping, walking, speaking. So what does this mean? And what's inside? What's dream? Subtle body. So what's inside the dream still? Prana. So that prana, that intelligence for walking, intelligence for grasping, intelligence for speaking, that's also part of prana. So think of prana not only as energy, but also as an intelligence that allows different capacities in the body to work, such as digestion, inhalation, and exhalation. In fact, it's going to say, right, this prana is endowed with 5 organs of action. Grasping, walking, speaking, procreating, and excretion. Now, how do you understand this? Very simple. You know, we used to have printers. I mean, we still have printers. In the olden days, remember how you used to install a driver? Do kids use that nowadays? Install a driver. Yeah, you just plug it in, right? It just works. Yeah,
by itself.
plug and play, right? But we used to, my time, your time, of course, install a driver. Now, you had a nice printer that was able to move, but you had to install a certain intelligence called a driver that allows that cartridge to move, to do what it does. So prana is like a driver. It's like that intelligence. When it enters the body, it now lets the body know how to move, how to speak, how to grasp. See, you can only see my hands going like this, but you can't see the capacity for grasping. And that's what it's doing. Now that capacity for grasping is in the subtle body. That's why the moment the subtle body enters a new physical body, all that intelligence for grasping and breathing and procreating, all of that immediately enters the spider's body, the snake's body, the human body, and automatically the fish knows how to procreate. The spider knows how to procreate. The human being knows how to procreate. Because the subtle body carries that intelligence with it. That's called prana. So prana isn't just energy, also the intelligence for bodily functions.
Some people die during their sleep, so what happened to them? They leave the prana with subtle body separation?
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether it's during the daytime or during deep sleep. It is the same idea. Like I said, the cells are not able to accommodate, that prana. That's one. There could be a cardiac arrest. It could be whatever. But either way, whatever it is, the subtle body simply leaves, and that's udana. That's called one of those 5 udana prana. It severs itself from the physical body. That moment on, you can no longer sort of return back to the physical body. Yeah.
Also the example for the nerves you were talking about, because sometimes when we travel a lot, different time zones, we get fatigue or a jet lag.
Yeah.
And we cannot coordinate our body. So
Yeah, so again, it's a collection of prana and body. It all comes together, and it's sort of a little bit out of, its time zone, out of sync. And so all of this causes that disturbance which you feel in your body. So they work together. In the alternative medicine industry, we have something called prana healing, like homeopathy, for example. Now, why do we not call that scientific? because science don't call that scientific. We don't call that scientific because they can't see prana. You only call something scientific if you can see it. If you can't see it, you don't call it scientific. But it still deals with prana. So you can see how the world sort of has a relationship with something they don't see. But in Advaita Vedanta and Tai Chi and Qigong and traditional Chinese medicine, we have these ideas that recognize a certain movement in the body, and we try to optimize that energy flow. Yeah. So this is all prana. Again, what's the point of this discussion? For fascination, or this is not who you are? And one more point about prana is, you see, prana, if you remember that chart, comes from which guna? Sattva, Rajas, or Tamas? Rajas, Rajaguna. Now, because it comes from Rajaguna, and do you remember what Raja is associated to? Sattva was knowledge, Tamas was material, or Rajas was movement or energy or desire or ambition or any forward movement. So prana comes from Rajas. Now, what happens when you slow down your breathing, which is basically less, when you slow down your breathing, what happens then to your mind? Slows down. Why? Because you're creating a less rajasic state in your mind. So you can see how the rishis connected this. If I slow down my breathing, the mind gets more sattvic, more calm. Therefore, prana is also associated to Rajaguna. Pranamaya is not I. So why pranamaya is not you? Na eva atma api pranamayaha vayu vikaraha. Verse 49. Ganta aganta vayuvat antaha bahihi eshaha yasmat kinchit kva api na veti ishta anishtam swam va anyam va kinchana nityam paratantraha. This pranamaya also can never be the self, because the pranamaya is a modification of air, goes in and comes out of the body like the air, does not know anything, anywhere, anything desirable or non-desirable. Prana cannot know the joys and sorrows for itself or for others, and is always dependent. So this prana, it says, is a modification of air. So in other words, oxygen is converted into life force. That's prana. So that life force, so again, you don't identify with oxygen, you don't call oxygen I, but when that oxygen enters through the nostrils and it gives you that sentiency, that aliveness, now you say, I am that aliveness. So now it's become a kosha for you. Okay, so now this pranamaya is also considered, interestingly enough, the most noble of the koshas. You know why? Because it works tirelessly 24/7 without asking anything in return. It's the kosha that never sleeps, always provides, circulates, and does, keeps your body alive. And we call this prana the ultimate karma yogi. Constantly giving. So this is a good thing about it. Now it says why pranamaya is not you. So what happens when prana leaves the body? That's called an exhale. And the prana enters the body. That's called an inhale. So if you were the prana, then by the time you exhale, you will no longer be aware. When it inhales, you will be suddenly more aware. Is that your experience? No. When you take a breath and you hold your breath, suddenly, your awareness would sort of be in some suspenseful mode. When you're more energized, are you more aware when you're more energized? Suppose I give you 20 copies right now. Does that make you now does that give you more consciousness? Not at all. Suppose, 40 days on a desert. Okay, really worn out, 40 days on a desert. Does that mean your consciousness is now barely, there? No. Your consciousness remains the same. In the presence of that same consciousness, varying levels of prana, of energy, are recognized. Therefore, awareness is not prana. If it was prana, it would fluctuate with prana, but it doesn't. It doesn't know anything. In other words, it doesn't know anything but to keep your body alive. So like I said, it's like a driver. All it does is just a program to keep the body alive. Its intensity and it changes, right? Its intensity is higher, lower. Does awareness have intensity? No. Awareness is always going to be same awareness. In the presence of awareness, intensity changes. Therefore, because the intensity changes and there's something that's unchanging, I cannot be that prana. And then prana depends on three things. This is another rule. What was the first rule? Anything that you can perceive cannot be you. Anything that changes cannot be you. Anything that depends on something else cannot be you. And how many things does prana depend upon? 3 things. Number 1, what if you don't eat for 14 days? How will your prana be? Low. In other words, prana depends upon food. Prana depends upon air. Prana depends upon mind. This is why yogis can suspend their prana and stop their heart sometimes using their mind. In other words, prana depends upon all this. Anything dependent upon is not you. Because we said earlier today, you are that which is self-existing. That which depends on nothing. So these 3 reasons are expounded, and tomorrow we will talk about the Manomaya Kosha. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.